right, welcome back, everybody, to the Always Bayern Chelsea show today, February 15th. Recording this one right after Bayern Munich's shocking but fair nil-nil draw to Bayer Leverkusen. Jim and I were down at the Old German Beer Hall in Milwaukee, braving the snowstorm, watching this one. And we also have another match to talk about, Chelsea's poor, embarrassing showing against Brighton. That one ended up 0-3, right? I almost
Yeah.
blacked that out. I don't want to even think about that one.
Well, you should black it out because it's just a black mark on society at this point, the club that Chelsea is. But yeah, it was great to be at the beer hall this morning to watch a competent team, somewhat competent, depending on how you look at that performance. Obviously, tune into YouTube if you're listening because you can see our beautiful faces in this winter season and subscribe, follow us on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and all the things, and give us support because we certainly need it and deserve it, in my opinion.
I would agree, and I will also note, this being a video episode, again, like you said, subscribe to YouTube. And I have not heard back from our 100th subscriber yet on claiming his prize, so we might have to do a separate video about that. But that being said, if you subscribe now, you can still get in on that 100 subscriber special. We'll either do 5 minutes on air if you want it, or I'll ship you my Bayern Munich cards from this 2024-2025 team season. So you can pick your prize. And again, always thanks for sticking with us. Thanks for subscribing. But yeah, I mean, let's jump right into it. We here in Milwaukee have been braving massive snowstorms. I mean, we probably got maybe 6 or 7 inches of snow the other day, and then maybe 3 or 4 last night, and it kind of snowed a little bit again today. So we really, have been kind of braving the elements to bring these episodes to you. As I say, sitting in here in my nice warm house. But no, it's been quite the ride the last couple days, and good weather for watching football, I suppose.
Yeah, the weather has been crazy, but thankfully we have these teams to watch and root for. And even though Chelsea is, just a horrendous team at the moment, it's still a team that I love and will support to the end. So that's kind of how I want to say my feelings about Chelsea right now. And frankly, we don't need to discuss this match in particular in the specifics of it. They lose 3-0, as you mentioned, and it's the same story we've seen the last 9, 10 Premier League matches now, where it's a lackluster, low effort, uninspiring brand of football.
Yeah, agreed. I'm starting to get um, over Enzo Maresca at this point. Again, I'm not in the weeds with Chelsea as much as you are or other hardcore Chelsea fans are, but I've mentioned this to you over text. I'm just getting tired of listening to his interviews saying that they're not a top team, this, that, and the other. It's going to be a couple more years till they're really competing, and I don't know. I feel like they have the talent to compete. I feel like the beginning of this year showed me that they could be a competitive team. And I also feel like if I were a player and my coach was talking like that week in and week out, it would just really bum me out. And, I'm not saying you got to go to the media and say we're the best team in the Premier League. You can be honest about some things, but it's just not my personal style and not how I would like to see things happen. I think you gotta, again, with the talent and the start of the season that Chelsea had, I think you gotta be a little bit more of a leader than that. And I think, it's obviously not all on the coach. It's not all on Enzo Maresca. The players have to step up as well. But I'm just tired of seeing this lackluster brand of football, like you said, from both the manager and the players.
Yeah, it's crazy because at the beginning of the year, all the talk was Chelsea have way too many players, and how are they going to manage all these personalities and talented guys? And I would have kind of agreed at the time, and now I look at the team, and yes, they do have some injuries and whatnot, and they've sent some guys away, but I look at the team, and I was telling you the other day, I just don't think they have that many talented players, and it's the same squad, which means either Enzo has caused some of them to be worse than they were toward the beginning, or there's just other problems, whether it's fit or whatever. And I think it's all the above. I think the squad has been built terribly, just trying to be young, and that's about it from a sporting director perspective. I don't think they know what they're doing. We've talked about that at length. And I think Enzo right now is just really struggling to find a way to bring this team together. So I think all those things can be true, while the players also have a say in not playing up to their standards.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I mean, just a couple things about this match. I need to see Reece James out there. I don't know what his health is looking like at this point, but he's in the squad. He's playing some minutes, so I need to see him starting just in terms of a leadership perspective. You know, Enzo Fernandez, in my opinion, isn't doing enough as captain. Everything's wrong with Chelsea right now, so it's not worth it to single out one particular player. I want to see Reece out there is my point. I look at Reece James as more of a captain type, as more of a leader type. And quite frankly, I think in this match, the entire defense was bad. Kukurea, Colwell, Chalobah, Gusto, Jorgensen even. Although I'm not blaming the goals in particular on Jorgensen. I think the entire defense was poor in this one. And I think, the bright players that you have, like Cole Palmer, for example, but maybe more so Moises Caicedo, I think he's just getting worn down. He's the one who, up until this point, I think he didn't play very good in this game, but overall this year, he's been pretty much playing great almost every single match, and now has kind of fallen off a little bit. I think, you know, you're kind of expecting too much out of guys like him, and he's getting worn down, and as well as Palmer, you can't expect him to carry the whole entire team when everybody else is playing poor. So, um, yeah, I mean, I don't really know what else to say about this one. Enzo had that one goal disallowed because he pushed off on somebody, and then I thought all of Brighton's goals were pretty much down to poor defending by Chelsea, or maybe just a stroke or two of luck by Brighton, or a stroke or two of good play. So, um, yeah, I mean, quite frankly, that's really all I have to say about this entire match.
Yeah, it's weird because I look at this team once again and I don't know where they go from here in terms of even how they're going to play. You know, they haven't been counterattacking, which I think is a mistake, but at the same time, they're not built to be a team that focuses on defending and trying to counterattack because their defenders aren't strong enough to do that if they're going to let the other team have more possession. And then Enzo wants to play this brand where their possession's actually been up in their losing streak. It was at 56, now they average 60. So they've been having more of the ball, but they do nothing with it. So I don't want to play this way either because they don't have anybody that can finish in front of goal except for Cole Palmer. And they clearly aren't able to generate enough chances playing that style. So I don't necessarily know if there's a mix where you can try to go back to maybe having less possession and trying to counterattack. I don't know. I think Enzo's really just going to have to dig deep and come up with something that's outside the box thinking because you can't do what you've been doing. This is what he did last year at Leicester, and he almost choked an insanely large lead to win the championship. And right now, the way Chelsea are looking, I don't think they're going to be winning games. So they're only going to fall further in the table. And then conference leagues are only hope. But then no way they can beat the Fiorentina, who's top four in Serie A.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's going to depend on the opponent that you play, but in my mind, this Brighton match, what I wanted to see was more long balls through the middle. I wanted to see more out of the midfield. I thought that Enzo Fernandez and Moises Caicedo could have dominated the match in terms of similar to how Brighton and Chelsea played each other a few days before this one. A stretched pitch, and I think there was room for long balls up the middle. I think, if you're playing a team that's maybe going to sit back and do more of a low block, what you're going to want is a guy like Pedro Neto crossing balls in from the side, maybe even a guy like Sancho on the other side, making moves inside the box. You're going to want more activity out of your fullbacks, inverting and trying to play balls in. You're going to want Enzo Fernandez to be more of that like attacking midfielder, or at least distributor producing balls into the box, and you're going to want Palmer there receiving those balls and maybe getting shots off. In Kunku, I don't know what you'd do with him right now as a striker because I don't think he is a striker. So um, I think you got to play with maybe Palmer as a false nine or using Kunku in that kind of 10 role because I don't think you can lead the press with Nkunku. I've seen enough where I don't think that's going to work. So, um, hey, it's a lot easier to armchair quarterback and sit back here and give my tactical ideas, but that's what I would start to do. I think Enzo is kind of putting his head in the sand and being a little bit stubborn and just playing the same way. I mean, he ran out. Is this the exact same lineup they played Brighton against a few days ago? And that clearly didn't work. You know, I guess Jorgensen maybe did Sanchez play the first one?
Yeah, and they had Chalaba and Colwell, where Colwell didn't play, I think, against Brighton the first time. But it's interesting because Enzo, I think, has been a reason that they've struggled lately. But going forward now, I really won't be blaming Enzo much further because I don't think there's anything else he can do now at this point. He's been part of the problem, but now the way these players don't fit together and Noni has gone out, he's probably going to be injured for the rest of the season with a hamstring injury. So I really don't see what they can do. So I think, honestly, if he gets us to top five Champions League, he to me that would be an incredible job, incredible, because we're so thin at this point and the way we're struggling to take a young team at this point in the season back up to top five, I think would be such a good job. And then he has to win Conference League as well. But it's just interesting. And I don't know. I'm just at a loss because it's tough to say where you go from here. I'm going to keep saying that, but it's true. You almost have to just hope for the best.
Yeah, I mean, Enzo is what he is at this point, in my opinion. He's um, the sporting directors or the ownership, whatever it is technically at Chelsea, um, is responsible for this squad. They're responsible for picking Enzo. I think part of the reason they picked him was he was going to be a little bit of a yes man. I don't know what the thought is amongst Chelsea fans. That's how I see it kind of from the outside. He's certainly not like a Tuchel or somebody who's a little bit more established and a little bit more like outwardly bullheaded and that they have their certain demands for the squad. Enzo to me seems like he was willing to kind of do what the sporting directors wanted. Again, that's just how I see it from the outside. Don't know if that's what the insiders are saying, but he is what he is at this point, and Chelsea's squad is what it is at this point. So it's like step up right now, um, or I guess you don't deserve to be in Champions League.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'd say he's maybe a soft yes man where he's not going to be pushing, pushing, pushing for certain players, but I think he has input and there's a little flexibility on each side. I think if it's true what they're saying now that they told him they don't expect Champions League until next season, I think on one hand it makes sense because they wanted to commit to somebody for more than 1 year. On the other hand, it's crazy to have that kind of a mindset when you're Chelsea, especially after finishing sixth and finishing the year as the hottest team in the Premier League, essentially. So all those things combined, I don't know. It's very interesting, and Chelsea has the talent right now. Um, we'll just have to see what happens. I think it has to turn into a situation where Enzo tells his guys, look, we right now can recognize ourselves as the youngest team in the Premier League, basically second youngest in top five leagues in Europe behind Strasbourg, actually, the other blue coat team. We're young. We're fresh. We have talent. Let's just be underdogs and go for it. And that's, I think, if you simply present it as that and then make that your style as well, aggressive, don't care about giving up goals. He always says, the way our style plays, like we're gonna expect to give up some bad goals. Like, okay, so play like that. Play like that. Be not caring at all about giving up goals. And then if you freaking play poor the rest of the year, fine. You're playing poor now anyway. So just go for it.
Yeah, I think, I think you have to, as a manager, you have to have a style. You don't have to be so stubborn that you stick to one certain style no matter what, but you have to have an identity. I think that's the word I'm looking for. You have to have an identity and you have to believe in that identity, and that's how you have to go out if you're going to go out. You can't look like how Chelsea has looked recently, in my opinion, especially with the amount of money they're spending on players, especially with the quality of players that they have. They have a lot of injuries right now. Sure. And that's a tough thing to work with. But there's a lot of squads that have a lot of injuries right now. And I think you have to finish fifth, at least if you're Chelsea. Um, you know, I always am gonna respect Man City no matter what, but they had the worst run in the Premier League for a while. Liverpool is having an unreal season. Obviously, you got Arsenal and Forest is playing great. And then, like I said, I respect City a lot too, especially with Marmoush. But if you don't finish fifth, especially with the start that you had as Chelsea, I don't know. I mean, yeah, find an identity, stick to it, and that's how you're going to end the season. Don't wobble around and be like, oh, we're not expected to be good anyways, and this, that, and the other, a lot of injuries. It's just, I don't want to watch that brand of football. And if I was a player, I wouldn't want to play it either.
They have the talent and the players to have an identity that's just simply, we don't give an F.
Yeah,
And they
have
can play
fun.
that way. The way Palmer just is nonchalant, the way Caicedo is just a badass tackling guys. Even Colwill, his attitude, Enzo, the way he is, he's certainly that type of guy. Cucurella, they have all these players that can be like that. So just go out and do it.
Just go out and do it. That's all. That's all I have to say for Chelsea.
And if we're going to talk about a team that did go out and do it, it's neither Bayern or Bayer Leverkusen.
Yeah, man, that was a shocking match. I mean, I said it in my short. 0-0 draw at the Bayern Arena. A toothless effort from Bayern Munich. And hey, maybe I'll throw my hands up and hey, maybe that's enough. We take the point, we go back to Munich, we focus our attention to Champions League now and getting past Celtic and playing another tough Champions League match whenever the next one is, if we can beat Celtic here. But this match in particular, wow, that was the absolute worst attacking effort I've seen by Bayern Munich all season and the best defensive effort I've seen from Bayern Munich all season. So I'll quickly run through the lineup here. Maybe a surprise or two, but overall, kind of what I thought it was going to be. Manuel Neuer at keeper, great match from Neuer. He showed up when he needed to and was a huge reason it was 0-0. Konrad Leimer at right back. Diet Upamecano, Kim Min Jae as center backs. I thought Upamecano was the best man for Bayern Munich today. Great match from him. Solid match from Kim as well. Hiroki Ito getting the first start of his season. He played a few minutes against Celtic, as we mentioned last episode, but hey, not a bad day from Ito, especially after coming back from an injury. He held his own and he didn't really have a lot of that rust that I would have expected. Kimmich and Pavlovic in the midfield. Leverkusen dominated the midfield today. That was maybe the most disappointing part of the match for me, was how little Bayern Munich's midfield did as compared to what they usually do. Olise at right wing, Musiala at the 10, Coman at the left wing, Harry Kane at the striker position, and not a peep from any of those attackers today. Bayern had zero shots on target. And two shots in the entire match. And then I guess a third if you count Harry Kane's header where he was actually called off and then got popped in the jaw anyways. So, um, yeah, I mean, what do you have to say about that when we watched it together at the beer hall with the Bayern Munich fan club?
Yeah, awesome match to kind of watch. And I really thought it was going to be a potentially amazing match when it started off pretty open, as we had been discussing at the beer hall, and thought there was going to be some goals, and didn't end up becoming that sort of match, as Bayern, as you mentioned, didn't sniff a goal. But they locked down, grinded one out, and I think that's important to see from a team that's going to be competing in the Champions League. This is the type of match that you need in the Champions League. I think when you have 0.05 xG and you give up 2.19 and four big chances, but still draw. And maybe in some cases you can get a win out of that. As Leverkusen show, they probably do a lot. So overall, a good result for Bayern, and as always, happy to be rooting on that team with all the fans.
Yeah, it was almost the inverse of the match that we saw at the Allianz Arena beginning of the year, where Bayern kind of dominated the match, got more chances, and that one ended up in a 1-1 draw thanks to kind of a ping-ponging goal, but a nice shot from Robert Andrich from Leverkusen, and then a wonder goal from Pavlovic on Bayern Munich. Um, None of that today. It was all Leverkusen, really. And, I was a little bit surprised by the omission of Patrick Schick or Victor Boniface from Xabi Alonso, playing Tella, who actually played under company at Burnley and got the goal in the Pokal match against Bayern. But um, Schick came on, I think, in stoppage time, and I was surprised that we didn't see more of an attacking lineup from Alonso at home. And I was completely shocked at the way the company set out the team and kind of just looked to mostly defend. It was almost like he took a page out of Alonso's book in that first half of the year and just told the guys, like, look, we got some Champions League matches coming up here. We're 8 points ahead in the league. If we can get a draw, we remain 8 points ahead in the league and would need an all-time bottle to lose that. Not saying it's impossible, especially with injuries and whatnot, but um, yeah, Alonso likes his midfield triangles, and I thought that he owned the game in the midfield. I thought Xhaka was maybe the best player on the pitch, maybe Upamecano, but um, controlled the game from the midfield, and it was open at times. I mean, we saw a little bit of end-to-end play like I was expecting, here and there, but for a lot of it, it was just kind of, Bayern Munich sitting back, especially in the second half.
Yeah, first half was open with no end result. Second half, 69% possession for Leverkusen, and they had all the chances in the world. So, yeah, to me, I feel like the last couple of weeks I've just been trying to get in the mind of Von Sohn company and try to imagine myself as him and picture his thoughts. And maybe what you said is correct with Champions League football and trying not to wear out Musiala, Kane, even some of these guys, because when you're seeing less the ball, they're gonna have less work. And yeah, they really just needed a draw today. They didn't need to go too hard. It was a more important match for Leverkusen, certainly. Um, but I don't know. I still don't think Von Sohn would just throw in the towel in a match like that. So it could have just been both, as you mentioned as well, that Alonso was tactically better on the day.
Yeah, I think Company got outclassed tactically. I think he's in a little bit over his head against some of these world-class coaches, the Xabi Alonsos of the world, the Hansi Flicks of the world, hey, even the Emerys of the world, against Villa in the Champions League there. But that being said, there's obviously like um, pros and cons about a coach like Company. Company's seems seemingly has been great for the locker room. As opposed to a guy like Tuchel, who was horrendous for the locker room. Company seems like he's doing enough to do well enough in the league. I mean, he's gotten so many points in the Bundesliga for the games that Bayern's played. 22 match days. What are they at 55 points now or something like that? I mean, that's maybe the best in Europe. That's up there with the best in Europe in terms of points per match for sure. In domestic leagues. So on one hand, I think he's turning the ship in the right direction, but this match was another match that just proved to me that I cannot expect Bayern Munich to make a deep run in the Champions League.
Which maybe isn't the worst thing. And yeah, you're right about the Bundesliga. It's pretty dominant at this point when you're 8 points up on second place, 18 points up on third place. So here's the thing about Champions League. Yes, I agree that I'm not expecting Bayern to make a super deep run. It's going to be a tough road. That being said, you are 8 points up in the Bundesliga. I'm not quite saying that's locked down, but 95% locked down. So let's focus on the Champions League. We'll hopefully breeze past Celtic here this coming week when you're already up heading into the Allianz Arena. Then you're going to get, what is it, Atletico or Leverkusen,
Yep.
I think, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
you feel fairly solid of those chances. And I say fairly solid because you know what to expect from Leverkusen. And still, Bayern is more used to the big stage. Leverkusen, you just never know. It's it's not like they've been in the Champions League forever. So, and Atletico, I just don't think they're having a good year, but I think Bayern's more talented overall. So, but the point I'm trying to make here ultimately is when you can focus more on the Champions League and maybe have a small underdog mentality, that's not the worst thing.
Yeah, I mean, this month is really tough for Bayern. If we get through this month in a decent position, I'll be feeling a lot better. I mean, we have Frankfurt and Stuttgart coming up in the Bundesliga. And obviously the double Celtic Leverkusen match here, 8 days or 7 days is crazy. And obviously Frankfurt has lost Marmoush, but I don't overlook Ekiteke. I think he's an amazing player, and Frankfurt has a number of veterans, Robin Koch, who are good enough to keep them good, in the Bundesliga. Not threatening for the title or anything, but good enough where they're going to play Bayern well. And same with Stuttgart. Stuttgart is getting healthy now. They were really banged up beginning of the year, and I think they had a super slow start to the year. But I expect them to be better in the second half of the year as well. So, um, not a cakewalk in the Bundesliga, but I overall agree with what you're saying. And the thing about the Champions League too is, in my opinion, there's a lot of luck involved. Now, part of it is these knockout tournaments, the big players show up on the big stage, but I think there is a lot of luck involved in Champions League football, whereas the league is more like a marathon. So, um, I'm not saying Bayern's down for the count in the Champions League. And hey, I mean, Bayern's defense showed me a lot today that, quite frankly, I didn't think they were capable of. I thought Kim and I thought Limer would have one too many positioning mistakes. I thought Upamecano maybe would make a risky challenge, or Ito would still be shaking off some rust. So Bayern's defense exceeded my expectations today, and that is something that gives me, I guess, a little bit of hope, if anything, for Champions League ball. Um, but yeah, I mean, overall, I'm feeling decent. I'm feeling good about the Bundesliga, and I'm feeling meh about the Champions League.
Yeah, I certainly agree that at this point, you ride that strong defense. And as we've talked about for weeks on end here, your chances will start to fall. Bayern have had a lot of chances, games with 8 chances and only 1 or 2 goals. Those are going to start to fall. Their players are much too talented where they're going to score. So I think if they get a little bit of that good luck and momentum, things could really go their way.
Yeah, and one other thing too, thinking about this lineup. I mean, I said it when I saw the lineup come out, but the reason you start Kingsley Coman is to play defense with Hiroki Ito. It's going to take two guys to stop Frimpong when you have Alphonso Davies hurt. A guy like Davies could potentially do it and then provide you with more freedom to start a more attacking minded winger on that left side. But the thought of starting Kingsley Coman, it certainly wasn't to do anything in the attack. It was to provide that cover for Ito. And there were a lot of times where we saw Coman basically playing like a left back and Ito inverting in. And on that other side, I gotta give Limer credit. More so Upamecano, but also Limer because he didn't really make any brash mistakes like I thought he might. He does play like a midfielder with his aggression. He's way more aggressive than a defensive-minded right back would be. So with Wirtz on that side, um, I just can't speak highly enough of that defense. I can't speak highly enough of Upamecano, especially.
Major credit to all of them, Upamecano especially. Ito in his debut was very strong, a clearance off the line. Limer doing a lot, moving from the right side to the left side once Stanisic came in. So credit to all those guys for really taking it on, especially against a tough opponent on the road.
Yeah, one thing I would have liked to see would have been Thomas Muller. I think we didn't see him at all. The subs that we did see, 68th minute, we saw that quadruple sub. Olise and Coman went out, and we saw Gnabry and Zane come in. Um, and then Goretzka and Stanisic came in as well um, for Ito and Pavlovic. So, you know, we said it at the time, me and you, we didn't mind those subs. I mean, you got to try something else. The attack wasn't working at all, and keeping guys fresh for Celtic, like I get it. And then this 86th minute, kind of curiously, we saw Boué come on for Musiala, and the whole formation kind of shifted there with more center backs and just more defensive minded, locking things down. But yeah, I do think I need to see more of Muller in matches like this. Not necessarily 90 minutes, not necessarily start the guy, but his instinct being to pass first and to find guys versus a lot of these attackers, their mindset is just dribble, dribble, dribble. Um, it just wasn't working out today against Leverkusen. I needed to see somebody with more of that creativity and more of that veteran leadership that Muller has.
Yeah, wouldn't mind seeing more Muller. I think he could be special in some of these Champions League matches as well, coming on as a sub, depending on who you play. We're talking about a guy that has the most Champions League appearances in Bayern Munich history. Could argue is their all-time best UCL player. And I'm only saying those things to tease an episode that we might be doing here shortly about Bayern and Chelsea in the Champions League. So I know a lot of statistics about Thomas Muller.
Yeah, we've been doing our research to make an all-time UCL squad list for Bayern and Chelsea, so stay tuned for that. The only other thing I guess I want to mention about this one off the top of my head is, I made a short. Musiala has extended his contract, so huge for Bayern. Locked him down until 2030, sort of. There's that release clause in there for 175 million euros now, or I think 2029 it reduces to 100 million. So, um, you know, right now I'm just happy about Musiala being locked down and extended for Bayern Munich. But I will say going forward, I might be a little bit more critical of him because he has that, he's in that upper echelon of players now, that rare Bayern Munich release clause, the thing that Bayern never does. Um, Kane's got one now. But that's for different reasons. Maybe we'll talk about that later. But yeah, nonetheless, I need to see more out of Musiala going forward in games like this. Now, I'm not going to single him out here, even though I guess I just kind of did because, hey, Kane did nothing, Olise did nothing, um, Coman did nothing, Zane did nothing, Gnabry did nothing. None of the attackers did anything, did jack shit in this one. So I won't harp on Musiala here, but I'm just saying going forward, I'm super happy about it. I'm not as pissed as a lot of Bayern fans are about this release clause. I think it's going to force the team to be good. Um, you know, I maybe would have liked to see it be a little bit higher as some of these mediocre players in Spain get their $1 billion release clauses. So, um, yeah, I mean, overall, happy Musiala is extended.
Yeah, you got to ultimately be happy about it. Worry about that release clause shit down the line. Musiala is a player that you want at your club, and if that's what it takes, I think you rightfully, pay the piper for that. And as you mentioned, if you're going to be a little more critical, then that's fine. You have to demand high performances from a guy if you're giving him what he wants. So that's also very fair overall.
Yeah, that's kind of my mindset. Like, look, he's obviously putting pressure on the club to be good, as he should. I mean, a guy of his with his ceiling, and that's what Bayern's paying for, right? They're paying for his ceiling. Not saying he hasn't shown it yet. He's been great, but obviously they're paying that level of top dollar for his ceiling, and he's expecting the club to be good, so I'm gonna expect him to be a top player. Fair, Musiala? You got me on that one?
Fair, fair, and I think he would agree.
Cool. Well, I think that's how we can leave it for this Bayern Leverkusen match. Really, not a lot of match actions to talk about. I mean, Neuer had some key saves at the end there. That's one thing to mention to all you saying that he's washed up out there. He had some absolutely clutch saves that Peretz, Nubel, whoever else, you guys want to start for Bayern, wouldn't have made. So. there's that.
Yeah, studs stepping up in big spots. Neuer will always be that guy.
Yeah, well, we look ahead now. Bayern, Celtic midweek. We'll give you coverage for that one, as well as Frankfurt over the weekend. And yeah, that's really all I have to say. Chelsea, their next match is against Villa.
Yeah, against Villa next Saturday, I believe. Yeah, and not much lately. I did actually see here yesterday, I think, late Chelsea made a signing of top Yemen product 14-year-old kids. So typical Chelsea.
A 14-year-old, is that right?
I'm just playing, but that was believable, wasn't it?
It
A
was because
14-year-old.
that's what they do. They look for all these guys from crazy ass places who are, and the way that Fabrizio would report it would be, um, whatever, 2009 born talent.
Well, that guy they did sign recently, I think it was a 16-year-old from, wasn't it like Kazakhstan or something?
Some crazy ass country, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
typical.
Well, all right. Look forward to more coverage from us here for these big time moments in the season. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, video episode after video episode coming from us. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Again, subscribe and get in on that 100 subscriber special because our man is not responding to us. So we will put it out to the public for this huge opportunity to get on air or win some cards. That's going to be it for me today. I'm going to go out, play in the snow, do some snow angels, and maybe I'll throw a couple snowballs all the way over to your apartment building there.
Sounds lovely.
Mia san Mia.
Up the Chelsea.